So I'm Laurie Halverson, and I am currently the state representative for Eagan, Minnesota, which is just south of St. Paul and Minneapolis. And I've been doing that job for the last 8 years. It's an elected position, so I run for office every 2 years to serve in the House of Representatives. And I work up at the state capitol in St. Paul.
Cool.
So to become a state representative, you have to run for office. It's an elected position, and so you have to get the most votes. I didn't know that I was going to do this job, and some friends of mine came to me and said, "We think you'd be a good state representative, and we think you should run." And so I went and filed to run for office and became a candidate. And so my name was on the ballot in the November election, and I won my first election. And I didn't win by a lot, but it was a close election, but I won, and I got sworn into office and served 2 years. The House of Representatives at the state level and at the national level is a 2-year term. And the idea behind that is that the more frequently we run for office, the more accountable we are to the citizens. That the citizens can toss us out of office if they don't like the way that we're representing them. And so all House members are up for re-election every 2 years at the state and at the national level. And so they call it the people's body, the House of Representatives, because it's the closest to the people. And so I have run for office 5 times now, and I've been happy to say that I've won, but you don't always win your first time out. I know a lot of people who have run 2 or 3 times before they win an election. So, and winning an election is basically getting out and talking to your neighbors, getting out and talking to your community, finding out what's important and letting them know how you'll represent them at the Capitol. And if they like your ideas, and if they trust that you're going to be representing them, that's how you win their votes. And so it's a lot of going door to door every day in the summertime and so into the fall to get those votes. This year, because of COVID, we didn't door knock. I was on the phone asking people for their vote and having conversations with folks about what's important to them and their communities. So being a state representative is a cool job. I my job is representative. That's what it says in my title. And so I represent my community in St. Paul, and my job is to make laws. And so we write bills that we debate and talk about and change. And the bill is basically an idea, and that once everybody or enough people agree to the idea, then it can become a law. And I've passed some pretty cool laws, and ideas for laws can come from anywhere. I had a family who came to me and said that their bus stop wasn't safe. And so I talked to the Department of Public Safety and the Minnesota State Patrol and the school district, and we came up with an idea to make the bus stop safer. And so I worked with police officers, and we took that idea that came from the family and made it a bill, and then it became a law because other people agreed that it wasn't safe, and because it's a statewide law, that law will make other bus stops safer as well. So, ideas can come from anywhere, and you don't even have to be a grown-up to have a good idea for a new law. One of my favorite laws that Minnesota ever passed was the prohibition of buses idling, and it was because a 5th grader who has asthma was outside and said, "Boy, the buses really bother my asthma when they sit there and they run constantly." And from that kid's idea, we now have a state law that says that buses can't just run and on idle, that they have to be turned off when they're not being driven. So getting into politics and government, a lot of people think that it's a hard thing to do or that you have to have special training. But to be an influencer in government, you are kind of an expert just by virtue of having lived in your community and being a part of your community. And so I've always had a big interest in public service because I've had a big interest in how we make our communities better. And it probably started for me as a kid. My parents were both involved in public service. My dad was the mayor of my small town, and my mom was on the Parks Commission and worked a lot on park cleanup, making our parks better in our community for the citizens. And I was in Girl Scouts, and we talk a lot about serving other people in Girl Scouts. And I learned a lot about those values and did projects, including, volunteering at my local nursing home. And so being a helper is something I've always been super interested in. And working with others to make good ideas happen is something I've always been interested in. And that's really what my job as a state representative gets to be. And the cool thing about being elected and getting to make laws is that I also have a lot of influence, right? To get involved in politics, you're doing a lot of, you can call your state representative, you can call your city council member, meet with them. We've had a lot of meetings in my community of Eagan about school pedestrian safety because we had a bad accident in front of one of our schools. And so I've talked to a lot of kids about how they feel about walking and biking to school and how we can make that safer. And so the kids have been really involved in helping to influence how we rebuild our roads. And actually, we're going to do that this year. We passed a bill to rebuild the road in front of that school where that bad accident happened. So it's really that simple. It's really about paying attention and seeing the possibility for coming together to create solutions to problems. And you never know when somebody's going to have a really great idea. So, and I like making people's lives better. Another thing that I worked on a lot is health issues. And one of the things that we did was I worked to pass first regulations on e-cigarettes because they're dangerous. And the science early on was showing us that they were very addictive and that kids were using them at really high numbers. And anytime I've talked to a group of kids about, changing e-cigarette policy and making them less available, I've always gotten a lot of support from kids because they're, seeing it in schools and stuff like that. And so that's something else you can do through government and politics is help work on health and safety in your communities. Well, I have been to a lot of different kinds of schools over my years. I started out actually in nursing school and became a nurse early on in my career, in my early 20s. I had worked as a nursing assistant in high school at our local nursing home and decided to become a nurse. So I worked in a nursing home and I worked in home health care, taking care of people in their homes, and did that job for a while and decided I wanted to do some different work. I actually got recruited to do some retail management work, and I thought it was a good opportunity to learn something new. I love learning, and so I did some retail management. I managed a department store for a while, and then but I hadn't finished my bachelor's degree, and that was a big interest to me. So I went back to school in my mid-20s to finish my bachelor's degree. I went to the College of St. Catherine, and I looked at their course catalog, all the different classes that they offer. And when I looked at the course catalog, I realized how interested I was in political science because all the courses I wanted to take were political science or history courses. And so that was my major in college was political science. And then I got a minor in English because writing and communicating was very important in kind of what I saw in my future. And I wanted to be a good writer. And so I learned a lot about writing, and it's a very important skill I found in the real world. If you're a good writer, you can get a lot of things done. And so my minor was in English, and but that spurred me on to do a lot of work to get citizens more engaged in government, get people out to vote, get people registered to vote. I did a lot of work on campus around that, organizing people to understand their power in government. And that ended up being a job. I did that work for the League of Women Voters of Minnesota after college, and then I went on to work for Blue Cross doing public policy and grassroots outreach. So I used to travel around the state and talk to people about how we can make their communities healthier, what public policies we could support to do that. So we did things like prohibiting smoking in all restaurants in the state was something that I worked on because it was a public policy solution to a health problem. And so that's how I kind of started on that, spending time at the Capitol and working on public policy. I didn't know it was going to turn into a career as an elected official, but it ended up being pretty natural because I like making my community a better place. So